Some promises are worth breaking the world for. Miguel Rodriguez was 16 when they tore him away from the only person he'd ever loved, his 7-year-old sister Emma. For 743 days, he counted every sunrise without her, worked until his hands bled, and survived on nothing but the promise he'd made. I will come back for you. But Emma was trapped in a nightmare, suffering horrors no child should endure, calling out for a brother the system said was too troubled to save her. When Miguel finally gets the chance to fight for custody, he's just 18, barely more than a kid himself, facing judges who don't believe in him and a system designed to keep them apart. This is the story of two survivors who refused to let the world break them. A story about the kind of love that counts every single day of separation, that builds a future from nothing but determination and hope. Miguel will face impossible odds, navigate a legal system stacked against him, and prove that family isn't about age or experience. It's about showing up when it matters most. But the scars run deep, the nightmares are real, and healing doesn't happen overnight. Can an 18-year-old construction worker really provide what his traumatized little sister needs? Can love alone rebuild what violence destroyed? If this story moved you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories like this one to life. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital corridor buzzed with their familiar hum as Dr. Sarah Mitchell made her way through the pediatric ward. 23 years of medicine had taught her to read the subtle signs, the way a parent's shoulders tensed, the forced brightness in a child's eyes, the weight of unspoken fears hanging in sterile air. But nothing in her extensive career had prepared her for the patient in room 312. Emma Rodriguez was 7 years old, with dark curls that framed a face far too wise for her years. She'd been admitted 3 days ago with severe dehydration and malnutrition, her small body bearing marks that made Sarah's chest tighten with rage she'd learned to contain behind professional composure. The official report said accidental injuries. The truth screamed from every bruise, every carefully hidden welt, every flinch when someone moved too quickly. Sarah pushed open the door to find Emma sitting upright in bed, her thin fingers clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. The child's eyes, enormous brown pools that seemed to hold entire universes of pain, tracked Sarah's movement with the wariness of a hunted animal. "Good morning, Emma," Sarah said softly, pulling up a chair beside the bed. She'd learned long ago that towering over traumatized children only reinforced their powerlessness. "I'm Dr. Mitchell, but you can call me Sarah if you'd like. How are you feeling today?" Emma's lips pressed together in a thin line. She'd barely spoken since her arrival, offering only one-word answers to direct questions. The nurses had reported nightmares, violent ones that left her screaming for someone named Miguel. "That's a beautiful rabbit," Sarah continued, gesturing to the stuffed animal. "Does he have a name?" A flicker of something, memory, perhaps longing, crossed Emma's face. "Qualo," she whispered, her voice rough from disuse. "My brother gave him to me." Sarah's heart quickened. This was the first voluntary information Emma had offered. "Your brother sounds like he cares about you very much. What's his name?" "Miguel." The name came out like a prayer, tinged with desperate hope and crushing loss. "He's 16. He protected me. Always protected me. Where is Miguel now, sweetheart?" Emma's fingers tightened on the rabbit until her knuckles turned white. "I don't know. Mama sent him away 2 years ago. She said he was causing trouble, asking too many questions. She said we'd never see him again." A single tear traced down her cheek. "But he promised. He promised he'd come back for me." Sarah felt the familiar burn of anger in her throat. She'd seen this pattern before, abusers isolating their victims by removing anyone who might intervene. "Emma, I need you to trust me. Can you tell me what happened? Who hurt you?" The child's entire body went rigid. Fear replaced the brief moment of openness, her eyes darting to the door as if expecting someone to burst through at any moment. "I can't. She said if I told anyone, she'd make sure Miguel could never find me. She said she'd hurt him." "Who said that, Emma?" "Mama." The word was barely audible. "And Carlos." Sarah's jaw clenched. Through her preliminary investigation, she'd learned that Emma's mother, Victoria Rodriguez, lived with her boyfriend, Carlos Mendoza. Both had criminal records, Victoria for fraud and theft, Carlos for assault. When Emma was admitted, Victoria had claimed the injuries were from a fall down the stairs. Carlos had stood behind her, his presence a silent threat, watching every word his girlfriend spoke. "Emma, listen to me carefully." Sarah leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "What happened to you is not your fault. You didn't deserve it, and you don't have to protect the people who hurt you. There are laws, rules that say adults must keep children safe. When they don't, other adults step in to help. But Miguel. We'll find Miguel, Sarah promised, knowing she was making a commitment that might be impossible to keep but unable to stop herself. I'll do everything in my power to find your brother. But first, you need to tell me the truth. All of it. Emma studied Sarah's face for a long moment, some internal battle playing out behind her eyes. Finally, her shoulders sagged in defeat or perhaps relief. Carlos hits me. When I don't do what he says fast enough, or when I spill something, or when he's just angry. Mama watches. Sometimes she holds me down so he can use the belt. Her voice was eerily flat, as if she were reciting someone else's story. Miguel used to stop him. He'd stand between us, take the hits himself. That's why Mama made him leave. She said Carlos was more important than us. She said Miguel was making Carlos unhappy. The clinical part of Sarah's brain cataloged the information, documented abuse, parental complicity, potential witness testimony. But the human part, the mother part that thought of her own daughter safe at home, wanted to scream at the injustice of it all. Miguel told me before he left that I should be strong, Emma continued, her fingers absently stroking the rabbit's worn fur. He said one day he'd be big enough that nobody could stop him, and he'd come back. He made me memorize his phone number, but when I tried to call from a neighbor's house, the number didn't work anymore. It's been 743 days since I saw him. The precision of that number broke something in Sarah's carefully maintained composure. This child had counted every single day of her brother's absence, holding on to hope like a lifeline in darkness. You've been so brave, Emma. Braver than any 7-year-old should have to be. Sarah reached out slowly, giving Emma time to pull away, and gently touched her hand. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to talk to some people, social workers, police officers, who help children in situations like yours. They're going to make sure you're safe. Your mother and Carlos won't be able to hurt you anymore. But the police came before, Emma said, her voice hollow. After Miguel left. He'd called them, tried to tell them what was happening. But Mama cried and said Miguel was lying because she'd grounded him. Carlos showed them his security company badge and said he was a respected businessman. They believed them. They said Miguel was a troubled teen making up stories. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. She'd seen this too, how abusers could charm and manipulate, how they could wear masks of respectability while committing atrocities behind closed doors. But she'd also seen the system work when the right people paid attention, when someone refused to look away. This time will be different, she said with more confidence than she felt. This time, there's medical evidence. There's a doctor who believes you. And I promise you, Emma Rodriguez, I will not stop fighting until you're safe and your brother is found. That's my promise to you. Emma searched Sarah's face, looking for truth, for hope, for any reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone would finally help. Whatever she saw there must have been enough because she nodded slowly, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Not tears of fear this time, but of relief. Outside room 312, Sarah leaned against the wall and took a shaky breath. Then she pulled out her phone and began making calls. First to Child Protective Services, then to a detective she knew who specialized in family abuse cases. As she spoke, explaining the situation, building her case, she thought about a 16-year-old boy somewhere out there who'd spent 2 years wondering if his little sister was alive, who'd made a promise he couldn't keep through no fault of his own. Find him, her mind whispered like a prayer. Find them both and make this right. The weight of that promise settled on her shoulders, heavy but necessary. Some battles chose you, and all you could do was fight with everything you had. Miguel Rodriguez stood at the edge of the construction site, his calloused hands gripping a sledgehammer as the late afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on his back. At 18, his body had filled out with the kind of muscle that came from hard labor and harder living. 6 feet of contained fury wrapped in sun-bronzed skin and determination. But his eyes, those same deep brown eyes that Emma had inherited, held shadows no teenager should carry. 2 years, 730 days, 17,520 hours since he'd last seen his little sister's face. The numbers haunted him, precise and unforgiving, ticking away in his mind like a clock counting down to something terrible. Every morning he woke in the cramped room he rented above a bodega in East Hartford, and every morning the same thought crashed through him with the force of a physical blow. Is she still alive? Rodriguez, you planning to work, or you gonna stand there daydreaming all day? His supervisor's voice cut through the construction site noise, the grinding of machinery, the shouts of workers, the constant percussion of building and breaking that had become the soundtrack to Miguel's exile. "Sorry, boss." Miguel hefted the sledgehammer and swung it against the concrete wall designated for demolition. The impact reverberated up his arms, a satisfying violence that let him pretend for just a moment that he was breaking down the barriers between him and Emma instead of just another building scheduled for destruction. He'd tried everything in those first months after his mother had thrown him out. Called the police 17 times, filed 3 formal reports, even showed them the scars on his back where Carlos's belt had left permanent marks. Each time, they'd made sympathetic noises, taken notes, promised to investigate. Each time, nothing happened. His mother had cried prettily, claimed Miguel was a troubled teen angry about reasonable discipline. Carlos had shown his security company credentials, positioned himself as a hard-working man, trying to help raise someone else's difficult son. The police had looked at Miguel, barely 16, angry, already developing the hard edge of someone who'd seen too much, and made their choice. Nobody believed the angry kid over the respectable adults. The day after his last police visit, his mother had packed his clothes in garbage bags and left them on the porch. Carlos had stood in the doorway, that smug smile on his face, and said, "Your mother doesn't want you here anymore. You've caused enough trouble for this family. Leave, or I'll have you arrested for trespassing." Miguel had looked past him, desperate for one last glimpse of Emma, but the house had been silent. Later, he'd learned his mother had sent Emma to a neighbor's house, made sure she wouldn't see her brother being cast out like trash. He'd tried to call Emma every day for months, but his mother had changed their number. He'd gone to Emma's school, but security had escorted him off the property after his mother filed a restraining order. He'd camped outside their house until the police threatened him with arrest for stalking. Every avenue closed, every door slammed in his face, until he'd finally accepted the brutal truth. The system he'd trusted to protect his sister had chosen his abusers instead. So Miguel had done the only thing he could. He'd survived. He'd lied about his age to get the construction job, found the cheapest room he could afford, and saved every penny beyond basic necessities. He kept a notebook under his mattress where he tracked everything. Addresses he'd tried, phone numbers that didn't work anymore, names of social workers who'd promised to help and never called back. And most importantly, a plan. On his 18th birthday, 3 weeks ago, that plan had finally become possible. No more restraining orders that applied to minors. No more being dismissed as a runaway teen. He was legally an adult now, and that changed everything. He'd saved nearly $4,000, enough for a lawyer, maybe, or a private investigator. Enough to finally bring the fight to them properly. The sledgehammer connected with concrete again, chunks flying, and Miguel let himself imagine it was Carlos's face. The fantasy was dark and satisfying in a way that probably should have worried him, but he'd stopped caring about the darkness growing inside him. He'd been a gentle kid once, the type who rescued injured birds and read bedtime stories to his little sister. Carlos and his mother had beaten that gentleness out of him blow by blow, year by year, until what remained was this. A young man who understood that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent was to become dangerous yourself. "Hey, Miguel." Tony, one of the older workers, called out during the afternoon break. "You gonna eat that sandwich or just stare at it?" Miguel looked down at the peanut butter sandwich he'd packed that morning, the same thing he ate every day because it was cheap and filling. "Just thinking." "You're always thinking, kid. Makes you look old." Tony cracked open a beer, apparently unconcerned about afternoon drinking on a construction site. "What's got you so serious all the time? You got a girl." "Had a sister," Miguel said before he could stop himself. He usually kept that information locked down, but exhaustion and the relentless anxiety had worn away his usual defenses. "Haven't seen her in 2 years. Tony's weathered face softened. "That's rough. She run away or something?" "Or something." Miguel took a bite of his sandwich, chewing mechanically. "My mother's boyfriend was hurting her. Hurting both of us. I tried to stop it, tried to get help, but nobody listened. Then they kicked me out and I couldn't get back to her." "Jesus, kid." Tony was quiet for a moment. "You report it? Call CPS." Called everyone. Police, child services, school counselors, even a lawyer who did free consultations. The bitterness in Miguel's voice could have stripped paint. They all took statements, promised investigations, and then nothing. "You know what I learned? If the abuser is good at lying, and the victim is just a poor kid from a bad neighborhood, the system doesn't care. So what are you gonna do?" Miguel met Tony's eyes, and something in his expression made the older man straighten slightly. Whatever it takes. I turned 18 3 weeks ago. Been saving money, been planning. I'm going to find her, and I'm going to get her out. And if anyone tries to stop me, my mother, Carlos, the police, I'll go through them. The conviction in his voice was absolute, carved from 2 years of helpless rage and desperate love. Emma was 7 now, had spent 2 years alone with monsters while he'd been powerless to help. The guilt of that ate at him constantly, a corrosive poison that turned his dreams into nightmares where he heard her calling his name and couldn't reach her. Tony studied him for a long moment. You know, my sister's a social worker. Works with abused kids. Maybe I could give her your information, have her look into things? Sometimes cases get reopened if new evidence comes up, or if someone persistent enough pushes. Hope flared in Miguel's chest, painful and dangerous. He'd learned to be suspicious of hope. It had betrayed him too many times. But what choice did he have? Why would you help me? Because I got kids of my own, Tony said simply. And because you remind me of my nephew. He had that same look in his eyes, like he was carrying the weight of the world. Kid killed himself at 17 because nobody helped him when he needed it. His voice roughened. So yeah, I'll help. Can't promise anything, but I know my sister's good at her job. She doesn't give up easy. Miguel pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Her name is Emma Rodriguez. She was 5 when they kicked me out, so she'd be 7 now. Lives in Bridgeport with our mother, Victoria Rodriguez, and her boyfriend, Carlos Mendoza. He rattled off the address, the one burned into his memory from all those nights he'd driven past the house, hoping for just a glimpse of his sister in a window. Tony typed the information into his phone. I'll call my sister tonight. No promises, but if there's anything to find, Maria will find it. The afternoon stretched on, Miguel swinging the sledgehammer with renewed energy, each impact a declaration. I'm coming, Emma. Hold on just a little longer. The sun descended toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that reminded him of the sunsets he and Emma used to watch from their bedroom window before everything fell apart. She'd been 3 then, small enough to fit in his lap, and she'd point at the clouds and make up stories about what shapes they made. That one's a dragon, she'd say in her tiny voice. And that one's a castle where princesses live. What about that one? Miguel would ask, pointing at a particularly fluffy cloud. That's you, Emma would declare with absolute certainty. Strong and brave, and always protecting me. The memory pierced through him like a blade. He wondered if she still remembered those sunset stories, if she still believed her brother was strong and brave, or if 2 years of abandonment had convinced her he'd simply stopped caring. The thought that she might believe he'd chosen to leave her was worse than any physical pain Carlos had ever inflicted. His phone rang just as he was packing up for the day, the number unfamiliar. Miguel's heart rate spiked. Unknown numbers usually meant bill collectors or scammers, but something made him answer. Is this Miguel Rodriguez? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Yeah. Who's this? My name is Maria Chin. I'm a social worker with the Department of Children and Families. My brother Tony gave me your information about your sister Emma. I want you to know something, Miguel. I've been looking for you for 3 days. Miguel's world tilted. What? Why? Because your sister is in the hospital. She was admitted 4 days ago with injuries consistent with severe physical abuse. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the physician treating her, asked me to help investigate the case. Emma's been asking for you, Miguel. She never stopped believing you'd come back for her. The phone nearly slipped from Miguel's suddenly nerveless fingers. Emma was in the hospital. Emma had been hurt badly enough to be hospitalized. But Emma was alive, and she was asking for him, which meant everything he'd endured, every day of waiting and planning and barely surviving, had been for this moment. Where? His voice came out strangled. Where is she? St. Mary's Hospital, pediatric ward. But Miguel, there are some things you need to know before you come. Your mother and her boyfriend have been arrested. There's going to be an investigation, possibly a trial. Emma's going to need family, someone stable who can take care of her. Are you in a position to do that? I'll figure it out, Miguel said fiercely. Whatever it takes. Just tell me she's going to be okay. Physically, she'll heal. Emotionally? Maria paused. That's going to take time. 2 years is a long time for a child to endure what she's endured. But she's strong, Miguel. She counted every single day you were gone. That kind of love, that kind of hope, it's powerful. Come to the hospital tomorrow morning. Ask for Dr. Mitchell. She's expecting you. After Maria hung up, Miguel stood in the construction site parking lot as darkness fell, his entire body shaking with emotions too big to contain. Relief, rage, guilt, hope, they crashed through him in waves. Emma was alive. Emma had never stopped waiting for him. Emma needed him. And this time, nothing and no one would keep him away. Miguel arrived at St. Mary's Hospital before sunrise, unable to sleep after Maria Chen's call. He'd spent the night pacing his small room, alternating between elation that Emma was alive and terror about what condition he'd find her in. He'd changed clothes 3 times, suddenly aware of how worn his jeans were, how his work boots were scuffed and stained with concrete dust. Would Emma even recognize him? He'd been a skinny 16-year-old when they'd last seen each other. Now he was 18, broader, harder, marked by 2 years of manual labor and living rough. The hospital lobby was nearly empty at 6 in the morning, just a tired-looking security guard and a janitor mopping the floors. The fluorescent lights seemed too bright, making Miguel squint as he approached the information desk. His hands were shaking. He shoved them in his pockets to hide it. "I'm here to see Emma Rodriguez," he told the volunteer at the desk, an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Pediatric ward." She checked her computer, her fingers moving slowly across the keyboard. "And you are?" "Miguel Rodriguez. I'm her brother." The words came out defensive, prepared for the challenge he'd faced so many times before. "Maria Chen from DCF said I should come. She called Dr. Mitchell." The woman's expression softened immediately. "Oh yes, Dr. Mitchell left a note about you. Room 312, 3rd floor. Take the elevator to your left." "Miguel?" She waited until he met her eyes. "That little girl has been asking for you every day. You're an answer to prayer." Miguel's throat tightened. He managed a nod and headed for the elevator, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. The ride to the 3rd floor seemed to take forever and no time at all. When the doors opened, he was hit with that distinctive hospital smell, antiseptic and illness, and something indefinably sad that seemed to permeate every healthcare facility he'd ever entered. A nurse at the station looked up as he approached. She was young, maybe late 20s, with dark skin and exhausted eyes that suggested she was near the end of a long shift. "Can I help you?" "Emma Rodriguez. Room 312. I'm Miguel, her brother." The nurse's entire demeanor changed. She stood quickly, coming around the desk. "Oh, thank God. Dr. Mitchell said you might come this morning. I'm Janelle. I've been with Emma since she was admitted." She hesitated, then placed a gentle hand on Miguel's arm. "Before you go in, you need to prepare yourself. Emma's injuries are extensive. There are bruises, some barely healed fractures. She's malnourished. But more than the physical damage, it's the psychological trauma you need to be ready for. She has nightmares. She flinches at sudden movements. She's terrified your mother will come take her back." Miguel felt rage rising in his throat like bile. "My mother's in jail, right? Maria said they'd been arrested." "Yes. Both her and Carlos Mendoza are being held without bail pending trial. But Emma doesn't fully understand that yet. She's 7, and she's been living in fear for so long that safety doesn't feel real to her." Janelle studied his face. "She talks about you constantly. Miguel will come." Miguel promised. It's been her mantra since she got here. "Don't let her down." "I won't," Miguel said, his voice rough. "Never again." Janelle led him down the corridor to room 312. Through the small window in the door, Miguel could see a hospital bed with a small figure curled on her side, clutching something to her chest. His heart stopped. Emma. After 730 days, his little sister was right there, just beyond this door. "Do you want me to come in with you?" Janelle asked softly. Miguel shook his head. "I need to do this alone." He pushed open the door as quietly as possible, not wanting to startle her. The room was dim, early morning light filtering through partially closed blinds. Emma was asleep, her dark curls spread across the pillow, and Miguel's first thought was how small she looked. At 7, she should have been bigger, healthier. Instead, she seemed fragile, breakable, her thin arms visible beneath the hospital gown revealing bruises in various stages of healing. Purple, yellow, green, a grotesque rainbow of violence. Miguel crossed the room on silent feet, his eyes burning with unshed tears. He could see now what she was clutching, a worn stuffed rabbit he recognized immediately. He'd won it for her at a carnival when she was 3, spent his entire allowance on the ring toss game until he'd finally succeeded. She'd named it Qualo and refused to sleep without it. She'd kept it. Through everything, she'd kept the rabbit he'd given her. Miguel sank into the chair beside her bed, unable to stop staring. This was Emma, his Emma, but changed. Her face had lost its baby roundness, Her hands looked like they'd scrubbed too many floors, done too much work for someone so young. But she was alive. She was here. She was real. As if sensing his presence, Emma's eyes fluttered open. For a moment she stared at the ceiling, disoriented, and then her gaze shifted to him. Miguel watched as confusion crossed her face, followed by disbelief, and then, "Miguel?" The word came out as barely a whisper, tentative, as if she was afraid saying his name would make him disappear. "Hi, Pequeña," Miguel managed, his voice breaking. "I'm here. I'm finally here." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She sat up slowly, wincing at the movement, never taking her eyes off him, as if he might be a dream that would evaporate. "You came back. You came back. I knew you would. I counted 743 days. I counted every one, and I knew you'd come back." "I tried," Miguel said, tears streaming down his face now, not caring who saw. "Emma, I tried so hard. I called the police, I went to your school, I did everything I could think of. They wouldn't let me near you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you." Emma scrambled out of bed, moving faster than someone with her injuries should have been able to, and threw herself into Miguel's arms. He caught her carefully, mindful of her bruises, and held her as she sobbed against his chest, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire small frame. "I was so scared," she cried. "Carlos got worse after you left. So much worse. And Mama just watched. Sometimes she helped him. I tried to be good, tried to do everything right, but it was never enough. Nothing was ever enough." Miguel held her tighter, one hand stroking her hair the way he used to when she had nightmares. "You were perfect. You are perfect. None of it was your fault, Emma. Not 1 second of it. They're the monsters, not you. I thought maybe you forgot about me," Emma whispered against his shirt. "Or that you got a new family and didn't want a broken little sister anymore. Never." Miguel pulled back just enough to look at her face, cupping it gently in his hands. "Listen to me. I thought about you every single day. Every morning when I woke up, and every night before I slept. I worked construction jobs and saved every penny, so when I turned 18, I could hire a lawyer and come get you. You were never forgotten, Pequeña. You were all I thought about." Emma searched his face, looking for truth, and whatever she found there must have satisfied her, because she nodded and buried her face against his chest again. They stayed like that for a long time, Miguel rocking her gently while she cried out 2 years of fear and loneliness and pain. His shirt was soaked with her tears, but he didn't care. She could cry for days, and he'd hold her through every second. The door opened and a woman entered, tall, with graying blonde hair and sharp, intelligent eyes that assessed the situation immediately. "I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell," she said quietly. "You must be Miguel." "Yes, ma'am." Miguel didn't let go of Emma, who had tensed at the intrusion. Sarah smiled. "It's okay, Emma. Miguel can stay as long as he wants. Actually, that's why I'm here." She pulled up another chair. "Miguel, Maria Chin called me this morning. She's been working on emergency custody arrangements. Given that your mother and Carlos are facing serious criminal charges, Emma needs somewhere safe to go when she's discharged from the hospital." Miguel's heart rate spiked. When is she being discharged? Probably in 3 or 4 days, medically speaking. But discharged to where is the question? Sarah leaned forward. "Miguel, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Are you working? Do you have stable housing? Do you have any criminal record?" "I work construction full-time. I make decent money. I rent a room, but it's small, just enough for me." Miguel spoke quickly, desperately. "But I can get something bigger. An apartment with 2 bedrooms. I have savings. I can do this. Please don't take her away from me again." "What about your own stability?" Sarah pressed. "You're 18. You've been essentially homeless since you were 16. Do you have family support? A network?" "I have me," Miguel said fiercely. "I have 2 years of surviving on my own and a lifetime of loving my sister. I know I'm young. I know it's not ideal. But I'm all Emma has, and she's all I have. We're family. We protect each other." Emma had been quiet during this exchange, but now she spoke up, her voice small but determined. "I want to stay with Miguel. He's the only one who ever protected me. Please don't send me somewhere else. Please." Sarah looked between them, this fierce young man and traumatized little girl clinging to each other like lifelines in a storm. Something in her expression softened. "The courts will need to investigate, make sure any placement is in Emma's best interest. There will be home visits, psychological evaluations, oversight from DCF. It won't be easy." "I don't care," Miguel said. "Whatever it takes. There's something else you should know. Sarah's voice grew gentle. Emma's going to need therapy, probably for years. The trauma she's experienced doesn't just go away. There will be nightmares, behavioral issues, trust problems. Being her guardian means committing to that healing process. Miguel looked down at Emma, who was watching him with those enormous brown eyes full of hope and fear. He thought about all the promises he'd broken, not by choice, but broken nonetheless. All the nights she'd cried alone while he was powerless to help. All the times Carlos had hurt her while Miguel was absent. No more broken promises. No more absence. Whatever it took, however hard it was, he would be there. "I'm not going anywhere," he told Emma, and then looked up at Sarah. "We've survived the worst. Now we learn how to heal. Together." Sarah nodded slowly. "All right then. I'll call Maria and let her know you're serious about custody. She'll start the process. In the meantime, Miguel, you can visit Emma as much as you want. In fact, I think having you here will help her recovery more than any medicine I could prescribe." After Sarah left, Emma settled back against Miguel's chest, her breathing finally evening out into something approaching peace. "Tell me about where you've been," she whispered. "Tell me everything. I want to know all 743 days. So Miguel told her. He edited out the worst parts, the nights he'd slept in his car because he couldn't afford both gas and rent, the times he'd gone hungry to save money, the crushing despair that had sometimes made him wonder if anything mattered. Instead, he told her about the sunrise he'd seen from the top of a construction site, about Tony who'd helped him, about the apartment he'd start looking for tomorrow that would have windows facing east so she could watch those sunrises with him. And Emma listened, her fingers clutching Qualo and Miguel's shirt simultaneously, anchoring herself to the brother who'd finally come home. 3 days after Miguel's arrival at the hospital, he sat across from Maria Chun in a cramped office that smelled of old coffee and photocopier toner. Files and folders covered every surface, creating precarious towers of bureaucracy that seemed ready to topple at any moment. Maria herself looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes suggesting too many cases and not enough hours in the day to handle them all properly. "Let me be direct with you, Miguel," Maria said, her fingers steepled in front of her face. "What you're asking for is complicated. You're 18 years old with no parenting experience, no stable home environment, and a work schedule that involves long hours of physical labor. The courts typically prefer placing children with established families, people who've been vetted and trained as foster parents." Miguel's jaw tightened. "Emma isn't children. She's my sister. We're family. I know that, and I'm not your enemy here." Maria pulled out a thick folder, Emma's name printed on the tab. "I've read every report, every police call, every failed intervention from the past 5 years. Your mother has been on our radar since Emma was 3. Do you know how many times we investigated? How many? 7. 7 separate investigations triggered by concerned teachers, neighbors, even Emma's pediatrician who noticed unusual bruising patterns." Maria's voice carried the weight of institutional failure. "Every single time, your mother and Carlos presented well. Clean house, polite demeanor, reasonable explanations. Emma was too young to articulate what was happening, and then too scared. The system failed her, Miguel. We failed her. So don't fail her again," Miguel said intensely. "I'm not perfect. I'm barely an adult myself. But I know Emma. I know what she needs. I protected her for 11 years before they threw me out, and I can do it again." Maria studied him for a long moment. "Tell me about your housing situation. Specifically. Right now I rent a room above a bodega. 1 room, shared bathroom down the hall. It's not suitable for Emma, I know that." Miguel pulled out his phone, showing Maria the notes he'd been compiling. "But I've been looking at apartments. There's a 2-bedroom in the East Side neighborhood, $700 a month. With my construction salary and some overtime, I can afford it. It's near a good elementary school, and there's a community center 3 blocks away that offers after-school programs. You've done your research." "I've had 2 years to plan for this moment," Miguel said. "I knew when I turned 18, I'd come for her. I just didn't expect it to happen like this. I thought I'd have to fight my mother in court, not." He trailed off, the reality of Emma's hospitalization still too raw. Maria made notes on a legal pad. "What about childcare? Construction sites are dangerous. You can't bring a 7-year-old to work with you. I've already talked to my supervisor. He's willing to shift me to earlier hours, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. That way I can pick Emma up from school, be home with her in the afternoons and evenings. For the morning, there's a neighbor in the apartment building, Mrs. Chun, no relation to you, who runs an informal daycare. She's willing to watch Emma before school for reasonable rates. You've thought this through. Every detail, Miguel confirmed. I even researched therapists who specialize in childhood trauma. Dr. Patricia Okonkwo has excellent reviews and takes state insurance. She has evening appointments available, which would work with my schedule. Maria leaned back in her chair, studying Miguel with new appreciation. Most 18-year-olds I work with can barely take care of themselves, let alone plan for a dependent child's needs. You're unusual, Miguel Rodriguez. I had to grow up fast. Carlos and my mother made sure of that. Bitterness crept into his voice. But I'm grateful for it now. If I'd still been a kid when Emma needed help, I wouldn't have been able to do this. There's still the matter of the home visit, Maria said, pulling out more paperwork. Before the court will even consider emergency custody, someone from our department needs to inspect your living situation. If you can secure that 2-bedroom apartment, we can schedule the inspection. But Miguel, I need you to understand something. She paused, making sure he was listening. The judge is going to be skeptical. An 18-year-old single male requesting custody of his minor sister raises questions. You'll need character references, proof of steady income, a parenting plan, and evidence that you can provide a stable, nurturing environment. I have references. My construction supervisor, Tony, he's the one whose sister you are. The woman who runs the bodega where I live, Mrs. Santos. My landlord. Miguel ticked them off on his fingers. They'll all vouch for me. I pay rent on time. I show up for work every day. I don't drink or do drugs. I'm boring and responsible, and exactly what Emma needs. A small smile crossed Maria's face. You really love her, don't you? She's everything, Miguel said simply. When they kicked me out, I lost my entire world. Not the house. That place was never a home. But Emma. She was the only good thing in my life. The only person who looked at me and saw someone worth loving. I'd die before I let her go back into the system or into another abusive home. Maria was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. My brother told me about your conversation at the construction site. He said you reminded him of his nephew who killed himself. That nephew was my son, Miguel. He was in an abusive foster home, and we didn't know. He tried to tell people, but he wasn't believed. By the time we figured it out, it was too late. Miguel's breath caught. Maria, I'm sorry. I didn't know. That's why I do this job, she continued. That's why I'm going to fight like hell to help you get custody of Emma. Because I couldn't save my own child, but maybe I can save her. Maybe I can help you break the cycle that destroyed my family. She pulled out a business card, writing something on the back. This is my personal cell number. Call me anytime, day or night, if you hit obstacles. I'm going to expedite this process as much as legally possible. Why are you doing this? Miguel asked, overwhelmed by her sudden fierceness. Because Emma counted 743 days waiting for you. Because you've spent 2 years preparing for a moment you weren't sure would ever come. Because the system has failed both of you enough, and someone needs to make it right. Maria stood, extending her hand. Go secure that apartment. Get me the lease agreement and proof of income. I'll schedule the home visit for next week. We move fast, we move smart, and we get Emma out of this hospital and into a real home. Miguel shook her hand, feeling something unfamiliar and fragile blooming in his chest. Hope. Real hope, not the desperate kind he'd survived on for 2 years, but the kind backed by action and allies. He spent the rest of the day in a blur of activity. First stop, the apartment he'd researched. The landlord, an older Vietnamese man named Mr. Nguyen, showed him around the space. It was small but clean, a living room that connected to a tiny kitchen, 2 modest bedrooms, and a bathroom with fixtures that had seen better days but functioned properly. The walls needed paint, and the carpet was worn, but the windows were large and let in good light. I work construction, Miguel explained. I can fix things, improve things. I'm good with my hands. Mr. Nguyen nodded slowly. You need this apartment for yourself? For me and my little sister. She's 7. She's in the hospital right now, but she's getting out soon. She needs a safe place. Miguel wasn't sure why he was being so honest, but something about Mr. Nguyen's weathered face invited trust. Hospital? She's sick. She was hurt. By our mother and her boyfriend. But they're in jail now, and I'm getting custody of her. Mr. Nguyen was quiet for a long moment, looking around the apartment with new eyes. My daughter was hurt too, long time ago, back in Vietnam. By soldiers. We came to America to give her safe place, new life. He turned to Miguel. I give you apartment. 700, like advertisement. But first month, I make it 500. You use the money to buy furniture for your sister, make her room nice. Okay. Miguel felt his throat tighten. Sir, you don't have to. I want to. I help you help your sister. This is good thing. Mr. Nguyen pulled out a lease agreement from his bag. You sign, you give me first month rent and deposit, apartment is yours. Move in whenever you're ready. By late afternoon, Miguel had keys to the apartment in his pocket and plans spinning in his mind. He stopped at a thrift store and bought a bed frame for Emma, a small dresser, and a lamp shaped like a rainbow that he thought she might like. The furniture was worn but sturdy. At a discount store, he found sheets with butterflies on them. He remembered Emma loved butterflies when she was younger, and soft pillows, towels, basic dishes, and cookware. His savings account took a significant hit, but Miguel didn't care. Every dollar spent was an investment in Emma's future, in their future together. He arranged for everything to be delivered to the apartment the next day, then spent the evening scrubbing and cleaning every surface until his hands were raw and the place smelled of lemon cleaner instead of neglect. It was past midnight when he finally collapsed on the floor of what would be Emma's room, too tired to drive back to his rented room above the bodega. He looked around at the empty space and tried to imagine it filled with Emma's presence, her laughter, her questions, the sound of her feet running from room to room. For 2 years he'd dreamed of this, and now it was becoming real in a way that was both exhilarating and terrifying. What if he failed? What if he couldn't give her what she needed? What if loving her wasn't enough to heal the damage Carlos and their mother had inflicted? His phone buzzed with a text from Maria. Judge agreed to expedited hearing. Home visit scheduled for Monday. You've got this, Miguel. Just keep doing what you're doing. Miguel closed his eyes and let himself believe, just for a moment, that maybe everything would actually work out. That maybe, against all odds, he and Emma would get their chance at a normal life. A life where she could be a kid instead of a victim, where he could be her brother instead of her only defender against a hostile world. He fell asleep on the bare floor of Emma's future bedroom, dreaming of butterfly sheets and rainbow lamps, and the sound of his sister's laughter filling rooms that had been empty for too long. Monday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of day that made you forget it was only early April. Miguel had been awake since 4 a.m., unable to sleep, running through mental checklists of everything that needed to be perfect for Maria's home visit. He'd spent the entire weekend transforming the apartment from empty space into something resembling a home, working with an intensity that left him exhausted but satisfied. Emma's room had become his masterpiece. The butterfly sheets were crisp and inviting on her bed, the rainbow lamp casting warm light across walls he'd painted a soft lavender, Emma's favorite color, she'd told him during one of his hospital visits. He'd hung curtains, assembled the dresser, and arranged a small bookshelf he'd found at a yard sale, filling it with age-appropriate books he'd carefully selected from the library's donation bin. In the corner sat a beanbag chair, purple and plush, perfect for reading or just existing in comfort. The living room was sparse but functional. A second-hand couch that was surprisingly comfortable despite its worn upholstery, a coffee table he'd refinished himself, and a small television mounted on the wall. The kitchen was stocked with actual food, not just the peanut butter and bread that had sustained him for 2 years. He'd bought vegetables, fruit, chicken, pasta, cereal Emma would like. The refrigerator held juice boxes and yogurt. The cabinets contained pasta sauce and mac and cheese. Staples of childhood he'd nearly forgotten existed. At 9 a.m. sharp, his doorbell rang. Miguel wiped his suddenly sweaty palms on his jeans and opened the door to find Maria Chin accompanied by another woman he didn't recognize. This second woman was older, perhaps in her 50s, with steel-gray hair pulled into a severe bun and eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw with clinical precision. "Good morning, Miguel," Maria said with an encouraging smile. "This is Patricia Wilkins. She's a senior case worker with DCF and will be conducting the home inspection with me." Patricia extended her hand, her grip firm and businesslike. "Mr. Rodriguez, shall we begin?" There was no warmth in her voice, no hint of the sympathy Maria had shown. This was someone who'd seen too many inadequate homes, too many well-meaning but unprepared guardians, and had learned to approach every case with skepticism. Miguel understood. He'd probably be the same way if he'd worked in child services, but it didn't make her scrutiny any less intimidating. "Of course. Please come in." Miguel stepped aside, watching as both women entered and began their assessment. Patricia pulled out a tablet, her fingers moving across the screen as she made notes. "How long have you lived here, Mr. Rodriguez?" "I signed the lease 5 days ago. Moved in immediately." "And before that?" I rented a room in a different part of the city. Just one room, shared facilities. Not appropriate for Emma, which is why I found this place. Miguel kept his voice steady, professional. He'd practiced this. Patricia moved through the apartment with methodical efficiency, opening cabinets, checking smoke detectors, examining windows to ensure they locked properly. She tested the water pressure in the bathroom, inspected the refrigerator's contents, even checked under the sink for hazardous cleaning supplies. Miguel had stored them in a high cabinet with a child lock, anticipating this exact inspection. The bedroom? Patricia asked, gesturing down the short hallway. Emma's is on the left, mine's on the right. Miguel led them to Emma's room, standing in the doorway as Patricia conducted her examination. He watched her face for any reaction, approval, disapproval, anything, but she maintained that same neutral expression. Maria, however, smiled when she saw the butterfly sheets. Emma's going to love this, she said softly. That's the goal, Miguel replied. I want her to feel safe here. To feel like she finally has a space that's entirely hers, where nobody will hurt her or make her afraid. Patricia made more notes on her tablet. Mr. Rodriguez, walk me through a typical day. Assuming you gain custody of Emma, what would her daily routine look like? Miguel had prepared for this question. I work construction, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Mrs. Chun, the neighbor I mentioned to Maria, watches Emma from 6:30 until school starts at 8. She lives in 3B, has been running an informal daycare for neighborhood kids for 15 years. She's agreed to walk Emma to school with her other charges. School ends at 3, and I'll pick Emma up. We come home, she does homework while I make dinner. Evenings are for spending time together, reading, talking about her day, whatever she needs. Bedtime at 8:30 on school nights, 9 on weekends. What about therapy? Patricia pressed. Maria mentioned Emma will need extensive psychological support. I've already contacted Dr. Patricia Okonkwo. She has a practice specializing in childhood trauma and has evening appointments available. Emma would see her twice a week initially, then we'd adjust based on her needs and Dr. Okonkwo's recommendations. The appointments are Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4:30, which works with my schedule. And if there's an emergency at work, if you need to stay late or work overtime, Mrs. Chun has agreed to be my backup. I've also spoken with the after-school program coordinator at the community center. They have extended hours until 6 p.m. I have contingency plans, Ms. Wilkins. I've thought through every scenario I can imagine. Patricia's expression remained unreadable. What about your own support system? Parenting is challenging, Mr. Rodriguez, especially with a traumatized child. Who will support you when things get difficult? Miguel hesitated, this question hitting closer to home. I have Maria. My supervisor Tony and his wife have offered to help. Mrs. Santos, who runs the bodega where I used to live, has basically adopted me. She's offered to teach me to cook better, help with anything Emma might need. And there's a support group for young guardians that meets monthly at the community center. I've already signed up. What about family? Your extended family? There isn't any, Miguel said bluntly. Our father left before Emma was born. Our mother's parents died years ago, and her siblings want nothing to do with us. My father's family, I've never met them. Emma and I are each other's family. That's all we've ever had, and it's enough. Patricia moved back to the living room, her inspection apparently complete. She conferred quietly with Maria, their voices too low for Miguel to hear. His heart hammered against his ribs. This woman held enormous power over his and Emma's future. One negative report could destroy everything he'd built, send Emma into foster care, potentially separate them again. Finally, Patricia turned back to him. Mr. Rodriguez, I'm going to be honest with you. When Maria first told me about this case, an 18-year-old requesting custody of his traumatized 7-year-old sister, I had significant concerns. The statistics aren't encouraging. Young guardians, particularly males, often struggle with the demands of caring for children, especially those with complex trauma histories. Miguel's stomach dropped. He could feel rejection coming, could see the future he'd worked for slipping away. However, Patricia continued, and Miguel's breath caught, I've conducted thousands of home visits in my career. I've seen million-dollar houses that were completely inappropriate for children and tiny apartments that were filled with love and security. This apartment is small and you're young, and this situation is far from ideal. She paused, and something in her severe expression softened almost imperceptibly. But you've thought this through. You've prepared. You've created a space that says a child lives here and is loved. That matters more than square footage or expensive furniture. Does that mean? Miguel couldn't finish the question, couldn't quite believe what he thought he was hearing. It means I'm going to recommend to the judge that emergency custody be granted, pending full assessment and regular monitoring from DCF. Patricia's voice was still professional, but there was warmth there now. You'll have check-ins every 2 weeks for the first 3 months, then monthly for the following 6 months. Emma will need to maintain regular therapy appointments. You'll need to complete a parenting course. There's one specifically designed for guardians of traumatized children. And if at any point we feel Emma's well-being is at risk, that custody will be reconsidered. Do you understand? Yes. Yes, I understand. Miguel felt like his legs might give out. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet, Patricia said, but her tone was almost gentle. The real work is just beginning. Parenting is hard, Mr. Rodriguez. Parenting a child who's been through what Emma has endured is exponentially harder. There will be behavioral issues, trust issues, nights when she has screaming nightmares and days when she pushes you away because she's terrified of being abandoned again. Are you truly prepared for that? Miguel thought about the past 2 years, sleeping in his car, working until his hands bled, counting every penny, living with the constant ache of Emma's absence. He thought about the promises he'd made to himself in the dark moments, the determination that had kept him going when everything seemed hopeless. I've survived the worst already, he said quietly. Losing Emma, not being able to protect her, not knowing if she was alive or dead, that almost destroyed me. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. That's all I've ever wanted. A chance to be her brother again, to give her the childhood she deserves. I'm ready, Ms. Wilkins. I've been ready for 743 days. Patricia nodded slowly. Then let's make this official. The custody hearing is scheduled for Thursday morning. Maria will be there to support your petition. Bring any additional documentation you have, pay stubs, your lease agreement, character references. Dress professionally. Be prepared to answer the judge's questions honestly and completely. After they left, Miguel stood in the middle of his living room, barely able to process what had just happened. He'd passed. The home visit had gone well. In 3 days, he'd stand before a judge and potentially be granted custody of Emma. 3 days until they could start their life together, start healing together. He pulled out his phone and called the hospital. Janelle answered on the 3rd ring. It's Miguel. Can I talk to Emma? Of course, honey. She's been waiting for your call. Hold on. A moment later, Emma's voice came through, bright with curiosity. Miguel, is everything okay? Everything's perfect, Pequena. The home visit went well. Really well. In 3 days, we go to court, and if everything goes right, you get to come home with me. Home? Emma's voice was small, disbelieving. A real home? With you? A real home. With butterfly sheets and a rainbow lamp and a room that's all yours. With me making sure you're safe and loved every single day. No more hospitals, no more being scared. Just us being a family. He heard her breath hitch, the beginning of tears. I want that so much, Miguel. I want to come home. Soon, Pequena. So soon. Just 3 more days, and then we start our new life. Together. After hanging up, Miguel walked into Emma's room and sat on the bed with the butterfly sheets, letting himself imagine her here, sleeping peacefully, no nightmares, no fear. Just a 7-year-old girl being exactly what she should have been all along. A child who was safe, loved, and free. Thursday morning dawned gray and threatening rain, as if the weather itself reflected the tension coiling in Miguel's chest. He'd bought his first suit 2 days ago, a simple black one from a discount store that didn't quite fit properly, but was respectable enough for court. He'd watched YouTube videos on how to tie a tie, practicing until his fingers could execute the movements without thinking. Looking at himself in the bathroom mirror, he barely recognized the person staring back. This serious young man in adult clothes, preparing to convince a judge he was capable of raising a child. The courthouse was an imposing building of gray stone and tall columns, designed to make people feel small before they even entered. Miguel arrived 30 minutes early, his palms sweating despite the cool morning air. Maria was already waiting on the steps, dressed in a professional navy suit, her briefcase clutched in one hand. You look good, she said approvingly. Nervous? Terrified, Miguel admitted. What if the judge says no? What happens to Emma then? Then we appeal, we fight, we find another way. Maria's voice was firm. But let's not borrow trouble. We've got a strong case. Patricia's report was glowing. She practically wrote you a love letter, which is unprecedented for her. Your references were excellent. You've done everything right, Miguel. Now you just need to show the judge who you are. They entered the courthouse through security, Miguel's stomach lurching as he walked through the metal detector. The hallways were crowded with people, lawyers in expensive suits, families clustered together nervously, court officers moving with brisk efficiency. Everything smelled of floor polish and the peculiar tension that accumulated in places where life-changing decisions were made daily. Family Court, Part 6, was on the third floor. The courtroom was smaller than Miguel had expected, more like a conference room than the grand spaces he'd seen on television. Wooden benches lined both sides, and at the front sat an elevated judge's bench with the seal of Connecticut hanging behind it. A court reporter sat at a small desk to the side, her fingers already poised over her stenotype machine. Maria guided Miguel to a table on the left side. "That's our table. The state's attorney will sit over there." She gestured to the opposite table. "Judge Catherine Morrison is fair but thorough. She'll ask you direct questions. Answer honestly, make eye contact, and remember, you're not on trial here. This is about Emma's best interests, and you are what's best for her." Miguel nodded, his throat too dry to speak. Other cases were called first: custody disputes, child support hearings, supervised visitation requests. He watched families torn apart and reconstructed through legal pronouncements, saw mothers cry and fathers argue, witnessed the machinery of family court grinding through human lives with bureaucratic efficiency. Finally, Rodriguez custody petition, case number FC 2025-1847. Miguel's legs felt unsteady as he stood. Maria touched his elbow reassuringly, and they approached the table. Across from them, the state's attorney, a woman in her 40s with sharp features and an air of professional skepticism, reviewed her files. Judge Morrison entered from a door behind her bench, and everyone rose. She was younger than Miguel expected, maybe early 50s, with kind eyes that contrasted with her severe judicial robes. "Please be seated," she said, her voice carrying authority softened by warmth. "I've reviewed the petition and supporting documents. This is an emergency custody hearing regarding Emma Rodriguez, age 7, currently hospitalized at St. Mary's due to injuries sustained from parental abuse. The petitioner is Miguel Rodriguez, the child's 18-year-old brother. Ms. Chun, you're representing DCF in support of this petition." "Yes, Your Honor," Maria stood. "DCF supports granting emergency custody to Miguel Rodriguez based on our investigation and assessment. And Ms. Patterson, you're here on behalf of the state to ensure the child's interests are protected?" The state's attorney rose. "Yes, Your Honor. While we acknowledge Mr. Rodriguez's good intentions, the state has concerns about placing a traumatized child with such a young, inexperienced guardian." Judge Morrison made a note. "Mr. Rodriguez, please approach the witness stand." Miguel's heart hammered as he crossed the courtroom and was sworn in. His hand trembled slightly as he placed it on the Bible, promising to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. He sat in the witness box, acutely aware of everyone's eyes on him. "Mr. Rodriguez," Judge Morrison began, her voice gentler now, "tell me about your relationship with your sister." Miguel took a breath. "Emma is 5 years younger than me. I've been protecting her since the day she was born. Our mother, she was neglectful even then, more interested in her boyfriends than in her kids. I learned to change diapers when I was 5 years old. I made sure Emma ate, got to school, had someone who loved her." His voice steadied as he spoke, the truth of it anchoring him. "When Carlos came into our lives 3 years ago, things got worse. He was violent. He'd hit me for small things, stupid things. I put myself between him and Emma as much as I could." "Why didn't you report the abuse?" the judge asked, her tone curious rather than accusatory. "I did, Your Honor. Multiple times. I called the police, contacted school counselors, even went to a DCF office myself when I was 15. Every time, my mother and Carlos convinced people I was lying. They were good at it, presenting this perfect facade while destroying us behind closed doors. When I was 16, after my last attempt to get help, my mother kicked me out. Said I was causing trouble, making Carlos unhappy. She kept Emma and sent me away. And you've had no contact with Emma for 2 years? Not for lack of trying." Miguel's hands clenched. "I went to her school, got escorted off the property. Tried to call, my mother changed their number. Camped outside their house, police threatened to arrest me for stalking. My mother got a restraining order against me, claimed I was dangerous. Everything I did to help Emma was used against me." Judge Morrison made notes. "What changed? Why are we here now?" "Emma was hospitalized with severe injuries from ongoing abuse. Dr. Sarah Mitchell recognized what was happening and reported it. My mother and Carlos were arrested. DCF contacted me through Maria Chin because Emma kept asking for me. She counted every day I was gone, Your Honor. 743 days. She never stopped believing I'd come back for her. The judge's expression softened. Ms. Patterson, your concerns? The state's attorney stood. Your Honor, Mr. Rodriguez is 18 years old with limited resources and no parenting experience. Emma has significant trauma that will require intensive therapeutic intervention. We question whether someone so young can provide the stability and support this child needs. The state recommends placing Emma with an established foster family, while Mr. Rodriguez completes parenting courses and demonstrates sustained stability. You want to separate them again? Miguel couldn't help the outburst. You want to put Emma with strangers while I jump through more hoops? I've been jumping through hoops for 2 years. Mr. Rodriguez, Judge Morrison's voice was firm but not unkind. I understand your frustration, but please control yourself in my courtroom. I'm sorry, Your Honor, but Emma has already lost everything. Her sense of safety, her trust in adults, 2 years with the only person who ever protected her. Don't make her lose me too. Please. Miguel's voice cracked. I'm young, yes. I'm probably going to make mistakes. But I love her. I've proven that I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe. Isn't love and commitment worth something? Judge Morrison studied him for a long moment. Ms. Chin, you've conducted the home visit. Your assessment. Maria stood. Your Honor, I've worked in child services for 15 years. I've seen every configuration of family you can imagine. Miguel Rodriguez has prepared more thoroughly than most experienced parents I've encountered. He secured appropriate housing, arranged childcare, researched therapists, created contingency plans. More importantly, he understands Emma's trauma and is committed to her healing. The bond between these siblings is extraordinary. Separating them would cause Emma additional trauma when she's already endured so much. Ms. Wilkins also conducted an assessment? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. Patricia Wilkins, our senior caseworker. Her report strongly recommends granting custody with appropriate monitoring and support services. Ms. Patterson interjected. Your Honor, good intentions aren't enough. Mr. Rodriguez works construction, a physically demanding job with long hours. How can he provide the constant supervision and emotional support Emma requires? I've adjusted my schedule, Miguel said quickly. I work early morning shift, so I'm available when Emma needs me. I've enrolled in parenting courses. I've built a support network. I'll do whatever additional training or classes the court requires. Just please don't send Emma to live with strangers. She's been through enough. Judge Morrison leaned back in her chair, silent for what felt like an eternity. The courtroom was so quiet Miguel could hear the clock ticking on the wall, each second stretching into infinity as his future hung in balance. Finally, the judge spoke. This is a difficult case. On one hand, we have concerns about a young guardian's capacity to care for a traumatized child. On the other hand, we have clear evidence of a strong sibling bond and genuine commitment. Ms. Patterson raises valid concerns, but Ms. Chun and Ms. Wilkins have provided compelling testimony about Mr. Rodriguez's preparation and dedication. She paused, looking directly at Miguel. Mr. Rodriguez, parenting is the hardest job you'll ever have. Parenting a child who's experienced what Emma has endured is exponentially harder. There will be nights when she wakes up screaming, days when she doesn't trust you, moments when you'll question whether love is enough. Are you prepared for that reality? I've already lived through the worst reality, Your Honor, being separated from my sister while she suffered abuse I couldn't prevent. Whatever comes next, we face together. That's all I'm asking for. A chance to prove that family isn't about age or experience. It's about showing up every single day and choosing love over everything else. Judge Morrison nodded slowly. The court finds that Emma Rodriguez has already experienced significant trauma from family separation. While Mr. Rodriguez is young, he has demonstrated unusual maturity, preparation, and commitment. Therefore, I am granting emergency custody to Miguel Rodriguez, subject to the following conditions. She began listing requirements: biweekly DCF check-ins, mandatory therapy for Emma, parenting courses for Miguel, regular progress reports. Miguel barely heard the conditions. His mind had stopped at granting emergency custody. He'd won. Emma was coming home. After 743 days, they were finally going to be a family again. Mr. Rodriguez, Judge Morrison's voice brought him back to the present. Don't make me regret this decision. That little girl is depending on you. The state is depending on you. Prove to all of us that love and determination can overcome impossible odds." "I will, Your Honor. I promise." As they left the courtroom, Maria hugged him tightly. "You did it, Miguel. Against all odds, you actually did it." Miguel couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. All he could think about was getting to the hospital, telling Emma the news, watching her face light up when she realized she was finally going home. Miguel burst through the doors of St. Mary's Hospital still wearing his ill-fitting suit, his tie loosened and hanging askew around his neck. The elderly volunteer at the information desk looked up, startled by his urgency, but her expression softened when she recognized him. "She's been asking about you all morning," the woman said with a knowing smile. "Third floor, same room. Go on, don't keep that sweet girl waiting." The elevator ride felt interminable, each floor passing with agonizing slowness. Miguel's reflection in the polished metal doors showed a young man transformed, not by the suit or the legal documents folded in his pocket, but by the wild hope and fierce determination blazing in his eyes. He was a guardian now, Emma's legal guardian. The word still felt surreal, too big and too precious to be real. The pediatric ward was quieter than usual, the afternoon lull between lunch and visiting hours. Janelle saw him coming and stood from the nurse's station, her face breaking into a brilliant smile. "I heard," she said simply. "Congratulations, Miguel." She's been bouncing off the walls with anticipation all day. Dr. Mitchell cleared her for discharge this morning. "We've just been waiting for you." Miguel's steps quickened as he approached room 312. Through the small window, he could see Emma sitting on the edge of her bed, already dressed in regular clothes, jeans and a purple sweater someone had donated, her feet swinging nervously above the floor. Qualo sat in her lap, the stuffed rabbit's worn fur testament to years of being clutched through nightmares and loneliness. He pushed open the door, and Emma's head snapped up. For a heartbeat, they just stared at each other, brother and sister, survivors, family. Then Emma's face crumpled with emotion. "Did the judge say yes?" Her voice was so small, so fragile with hope and fear. "Can I come home with you?" Miguel crossed the room and knelt in front of her, taking her small hands in his larger, calloused ones. "The judge said yes, Pequeña. You're coming home. Today. Right now if you want." Emma's response was immediate and visceral. She threw herself at Miguel with such force she nearly knocked him over, her thin arms wrapping around his neck in a grip that spoke of 2 years of desperate longing. She sobbed against his shoulder, her whole body shaking with the release of emotions too powerful for someone so young to contain. "I was so scared," she gasped between sobs. "So scared you'd have to leave again. That they'd send me somewhere else. That I'd never see you again." "Never," Miguel said fiercely, holding her tight. "Nobody's separating us again. I'm your guardian now, Emma. That's official, legal, permanent. You're stuck with me." Emma pulled back just enough to look at his face, her eyes red-rimmed but shining. "Stuck with you is all I've ever wanted." Dr. Sarah Mitchell entered carrying a folder thick with paperwork. Her professional demeanor couldn't quite hide the emotional satisfaction in her expression. "I see someone's received good news," she said warmly. "Miguel, we need to go over Emma's discharge instructions. She's healing well physically, but there are some important things you need to monitor." For the next 20 minutes, Sarah walked Miguel through a comprehensive care plan. Emma's ribs needed another 3 weeks to fully heal. No rough play, careful with how she was picked up. The bruises would fade but might leave some scarring. She provided prescriptions for pain management and detailed instructions for wound care. But most of Sarah's guidance focused on the psychological recovery. "Emma will have good days and bad days," Sarah explained, her hand resting gently on Emma's shoulder. "Trauma doesn't heal on a predictable timeline. She might have nightmares, flashbacks, moments when something seemingly innocuous triggers a panic response. She might test you, Miguel, push boundaries to see if you'll abandon her like others have. That's normal. That's her trying to feel safe. How do I help her through that?" Miguel asked, his voice tight with concern. "Consistency, patience, unconditional love." Sarah smiled at Emma. "And therapy? I've already contacted Dr. Okonkwo. Emma's first appointment is scheduled for next Tuesday. She's excellent with traumatized children. Between therapy, time, and the stable environment you're providing, Emma will heal. It won't be easy or quick, but she will heal." Emma had been quiet during this discussion, but now she spoke up. "Will I always remember? The bad things that happened?" Sarah knelt down to Emma's eye level. "You'll always remember, sweetheart. But here's what will change. Right now, those memories hurt because they're your whole world. As time passes and good things happen, those memories become just one part of your story instead of the whole story. They don't disappear, but they get smaller. Does that make sense? Emma nodded slowly, processing this with the seriousness of someone far older than 7. I think so. Like how Qualo has some tears and worn spots, but he's still my favorite. Exactly like that, Sarah said gently. The hard things that happened are part of your story, but they're not your whole story. Your whole story includes Miguel coming back, and this new home, and all the good things that are coming. After signing what felt like 100 forms, Miguel finally had official custody documents and discharge papers in hand. Janelle brought a wheelchair, hospital policy, she explained apologetically, and Emma sat in it clutching Qualo, her hospital bag of belongings in her lap. The journey from room 312 to the hospital exit felt ceremonial, like a procession marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Other nurses emerged from their stations to say goodbye, offering Emma encouragement and treats. A stuffed bear from the gift shop, a packet of stickers, a juice box for the ride home. These women who'd cared for Emma during her darkest days were sending her off with blessings and hope. At the exit, Emma stood from the wheelchair and took Miguel's hand. The automatic doors slid open, and April sunshine spilled across them, warm and promising. Emma squinted against the light, and Miguel realized how long it had been since she'd been outside. Even before the hospitalization, Carlos had rarely let her leave the house. It's so bright, Emma whispered, wonder in her voice. Get used to it, Miguel said, squeezing her hand. We're going to spend a lot of time outside. Parks, playgrounds, just walking around the neighborhood. You deserve sunshine, Pequeña. The drive to their apartment took 15 minutes through streets Emma didn't recognize. She pressed her face against the window, watching the city pass with wide eyes. Children playing in yards, dogs being walked, the ordinary magic of normal life that had been denied to her for so long. That's your school, Miguel said, pointing to a brick building with a colorful playground. Washington Elementary. It's supposed to be good. You'll start there on Monday if you feel ready, or we can wait a week or two. Monday, Emma said immediately. I want to go Monday. I want everything to be normal again. When they pulled up to the apartment building, Miguel felt a flutter of nervousness. He'd worked so hard to make it perfect, but what if Emma was disappointed? What if it wasn't enough after everything she'd endured? Mr. Nguyen was sweeping the front steps and looked up as they approached. His weathered face creased into a smile. Ah, you must be Emma. Welcome home, little one. Your brother has been working very hard to make everything nice for you. Emma hid slightly behind Miguel, not yet comfortable with strangers, but managed a quiet thank you. The climb to the second floor felt endless. Miguel unlocked the door to apartment 2C and pushed it open, then stepped back to let Emma enter first. He watched her face carefully as she took in her new home. The living room was modest but welcoming, afternoon sun streaming through clean windows, the second-hand couch draped with a soft throw blanket, a vase of flowers on the coffee table that Mrs. Chun from 3B had brought over that morning. Emma moved through the space slowly, touching things tentatively as if afraid they might disappear. Your room is down the hall, Miguel said softly. The door with the butterfly sticker. Emma looked at him with questioning eyes, then walked down the hallway. Miguel followed, his heart pounding. This was the moment. Would she love it or be disappointed? Emma pushed open the door to her room and froze. Miguel watched as she took in the lavender walls, the bed with butterfly sheets, the rainbow lamp casting colored light across the ceiling, the bookshelf with its carefully selected books, the purple beanbag chair, the dresser with a mirror that had flower decals around its frame. This is mine. Emma's voice was hushed, reverent. All of this is really mine? Every bit of it, Miguel confirmed. I painted the walls myself. That's your favorite color, right? And the lamp. I thought you might like having a rainbow in your room. The books are from the library donation bin, but they're yours to keep. And that beanbag chair is perfect for reading or just hanging out. Emma crossed to the bed and ran her hand across the butterfly sheets. Then she noticed something Miguel had placed on the pillow, a framed photograph, one of the few possessions he'd managed to salvage from their old life. It showed 5-year-old Emma and 11-year-old Miguel at a park, both smiling at the camera, his arm around her shoulders protectively. They looked happy. They looked like family. You kept this? Emma picked up the frame, her fingers tracing over their younger faces. I've carried it with me every day for 2 years, Miguel said, his voice thick. On the bad days, I'd look at it and remember why I had to keep going. You were always with me, Pequeña, even when we were apart. Emma set down the frame and turned to Miguel, her eyes swimming with tears. But these weren't tears of sadness or fear. These were tears of relief, of homecoming, of finally being somewhere safe with someone who loved her unconditionally. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for this." She gestured around the room, but Miguel understood she meant something bigger than just the physical space. She meant hope. She meant family. She meant love. Miguel knelt down and pulled her into a hug. "You never have to thank me for loving you, Emma. That's not something you earn or deserve. It just is. You're my sister. That means I'll always come back, always fight for you, always make sure you have a safe place to land." They stayed like that for a long moment, brother and sister, survivors of horrors that would have broken many people, now finally home. Outside, the April afternoon continued its gentle progression toward evening. In apartment 2C, two young people who'd lost everything began the slow, careful work of building a new life from the ruins of their old one. Emma pulled back and wiped her eyes. "Can I put my things away? Organize my books. This is your room, Pequeña. You can do whatever you want with it." As Emma began arranging her few belongings with the careful attention of someone who'd never had anything truly her own, Miguel leaned against the doorframe and watched. This was just the beginning. There would be hard days ahead, nightmares to soothe, tears to dry, fears to overcome. But they would face those days together, and that made all the difference. "Miguel?" Emma looked up from where she was organizing books on her shelf. "Are you happy?" "Happier than I've been in 743 days, he said honestly. "Are you?" Emma considered the question seriously. Then she smiled, a real smile, unforced and genuine. "Yeah, I'm home. With you. So yeah, I'm happy." And in that moment, in a small apartment with second-hand furniture and lavender walls, happiness felt like the most radical act of resistance imaginable. Evening settled over the apartment like a gentle blanket, the golden hour sunlight painting Emma's lavender walls in shades of amber and rose. Miguel stood in the kitchen attempting to make dinner. Spaghetti with marinara sauce, one of the few dishes he felt confident preparing. The pasta water bubbled on the stove while he stirred the sauce, hyper-aware of Emma in the living room, of the responsibility that now rested entirely on his shoulders. She sat curled in the corner of the couch, Qualo in her lap, watching him with those enormous brown eyes that seemed to track his every movement. There was still wariness there, a hesitation that broke Miguel's heart. She was home, she was safe, but her body didn't know that yet. Her nervous system was still calibrated for danger, still expecting the other shoe to drop. "Dinner's almost ready," Miguel called out, trying to sound casual and normal, as if they'd done this routine 1,000 times before instead of this being their first meal together in 743 days. "I hope you still like spaghetti." "I like spaghetti," Emma said quietly. Then, after a pause, "Carlos never let me have seconds. He said I was getting fat and wasting food." Miguel's hand tightened on the wooden spoon he was holding, rage flooding through him so intensely he had to close his eyes and breathe through it. Carlos was in jail awaiting trial, but that didn't stop Miguel from imagining all the things he wanted to do to the man who'd starved and terrorized his little sister. "You can have as many servings as you want here," Miguel said when he trusted his voice to be steady. "And you're not fat, Emma. You're perfect exactly as you are." Carlos was wrong about everything. He dished out generous portions onto two mismatched plates. He'd need to buy a proper dinner set eventually, but for now, the thrift store finds would do. At the small kitchen table, they sat across from each other, and Miguel watched as Emma stared at her plate with something like disbelief. "It's okay," he said gently. "You can eat. Nobody's going to take it away from you." Emma picked up her fork with trembling hands and took a small bite, then another. Then she was eating with the desperation of someone who'd been hungry for too long, barely pausing to breathe. Miguel had to resist the urge to tell her to slow down. He understood that hunger, had felt it himself during those lean months after being kicked out. Instead, he simply served her more when her plate emptied, and then more again, until finally she sat back with a small sigh. "I'm full," she announced, wonder in her voice. "Actually full." "Good," Miguel said, fighting back tears. Such a simple thing, a child being properly fed, and yet it represented everything they'd been denied for so long. "That's how it should be. You'll never be hungry in this house, Pequeña. I promise." After dinner, Emma helped him wash dishes at the sink, standing on a step stool he'd bought specifically for this purpose. She was meticulous about it, scrubbing each plate until it gleamed, and Miguel realized she was probably afraid of being punished for doing it wrong. The thought made him want to punch something, but instead he kept his voice light and encouraging. "You're doing great. But you know, it's okay if dishes aren't perfect. Nobody's going to be angry about water spots." Emma glanced at him sideways, testing to see if he meant it. "Really? Really? We're going to make mistakes here, both of us. I'm going to burn dinner sometimes. You're going to spill juice. The apartment's going to get messy. That's just life, and it's okay. Mistakes don't mean punishment anymore." The concept seemed foreign to her, and Miguel knew it would take time for that message to sink in. Years of conditioning couldn't be undone in a single evening. But they had time now, all the time in the world. As twilight deepened into night, Miguel suggested a movie. Emma chose an animated film about a girl and her dragon, and they settled on the couch together, Emma gradually inching closer until she was pressed against Miguel's side, his arm around her shoulders. Halfway through the movie, she fell asleep, her head heavy against his chest, her breathing deep and even. Miguel didn't move, even when his arms started to go numb. He just held his sister and watched her sleep. No nightmares yet, no screaming, just peaceful rest. The movie played on, forgotten, as Miguel marveled at this moment. Emma was here. Emma was safe. Emma was home. Around 9 o'clock, he carefully lifted her. She was far too light, another reminder of the malnutrition she'd endured, and carried her to her bedroom. She stirred slightly as he laid her on the bed with the butterfly sheets, her eyes fluttering open in momentary panic. "It's okay," Miguel whispered. "You're safe. You're in your own room, in your own bed. I'm right down the hall if you need me." Emma's panic subsided, but her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. "Don't leave. Not yet. Please." Miguel's heart clenched. "I'm not leaving, Pequeña. I'm just putting you to bed. I'll be right across the hall in my room. But what if I have a nightmare? What if I wake up and forget where I am?" Her voice was small, threaded with the kind of fear that came from too many nights waking up in terror with no one to comfort her. Miguel made a decision. "How about this? I'll stay until you fall asleep. And if you have a nightmare, you come wake me up. My door is always open, Emma. Always. Promise?" "I promise. And I keep my promises." Emma settled back against her pillows, still clutching Qualo, and Miguel sat on the edge of her bed. He did what he used to do when she was little, what he'd dreamed of doing for 743 nights. He told her a story. "Once upon a time," he began, his voice soft in the darkness broken only by the rainbow lamp's gentle glow, "there was a brave little girl who survived a terrible dragon. The dragon pretended to be nice sometimes, but it was really full of fire and cruelty. The girl was clever, though. She counted the days, she held on to hope, and she waited for her brother who'd promised to rescue her." "Is this story about us?" Emma whispered. "Maybe. Do you want me to continue?" She nodded against her pillow. The brother fought many battles to get back to his sister. He fought with judges and lawyers, he worked until his hands bled. He never stopped trying even when everyone said it was impossible. And one day, he finally defeated all the dragons and obstacles, and he brought his sister to a safe castle where no one would ever hurt her again. What happened next? Emma's eyes were heavy, her voice drowsy. Next, they learned how to be happy. It took time because happiness is a skill you have to practice when you've forgotten how. But every day, they got a little better at it. They laughed more. They felt safe more. And eventually, the dragons became just a bad memory instead of their whole world. "I like that story," Emma murmured, her eyes finally closing. "Tell me again tomorrow?" "Every night if you want," Miguel promised. He stayed for another 20 minutes, watching her breathe, making sure she was truly asleep. Then he carefully stood and tiptoed to the door. Before leaving, he turned back one more time, memorizing this image. Emma safe in her own bed, in her own room, with butterfly sheets and a rainbow lamp and all the security he could provide. In his own room, Miguel changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt, then lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. He was exhausted, emotionally and physically wrung out from the intensity of the day, but sleep felt impossible. Every small sound made him tense, listening for signs that Emma needed him. Around midnight, his vigilance was rewarded, or perhaps punished. He heard a sharp cry from Emma's room, then sobbing. Miguel was on his feet and across the hall in seconds, pushing open her door to find Emma sitting up in bed, trembling violently, tears streaming down her face. "Pequeña, I'm here." Miguel crossed to her bed and gathered her into his arms. "You're safe. You're home. Nobody can hurt you." "He was here," Emma gasped between sobs. "Carlos was here and Mama was holding me down, and I couldn't get away and... It was a dream. Just a dream. Look around, Emma. You're in your room with the butterfly sheets and the rainbow lamp. Carlos is in jail. Our mother is in jail. They can't reach you anymore." Emma clung to him, her small body shaking with the force of her terror. Miguel held her and rocked her gently, murmuring reassurances, letting her cry out the fear that her conscious mind tried to suppress, but her subconscious couldn't forget. "I'm sorry," Emma finally hiccuped. "You said to come wake you up, but I was too scared to move." "Never apologize for being scared. And you don't have to come to me. I'll always come to you. That's my job now, Emma. Keeping you safe, comforting you when you're scared, being here for whatever you need." "Can you stay?" Emma asked, her voice muffled against his shirt. "Just tonight? I don't want to be alone." Miguel should probably have said no. Every parenting guide would advise maintaining boundaries, encouraging independence. But this wasn't a normal situation, and Emma wasn't asking for coddling. She was asking for basic safety and comfort after years of trauma. He wasn't about to deny her that. "I'll stay," he said simply. He settled on top of the covers beside her, and Emma curled against his side, her head on his shoulder. Within minutes, her breathing evened out again, but Miguel stayed awake, keeping watch over her sleep like he'd wished he could have done for the past 2 years. The night stretched on, marked by the occasional sound of cars passing outside, the hum of the refrigerator, the settle and creak of an old building at rest. Miguel thought about everything that had led to this moment: the abuse, the separation, the desperate struggle to survive and plan and hope. He thought about the courtroom, Maria's support, Judge Morrison's decision. He thought about all the people who'd helped them get here. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who'd believed Emma, Tony, who'd connected him with his sister Maria, Mr. Nguyen, who'd given them an affordable home, Patricia Wilkins, who'd recommended custody despite her initial doubts. It took a village, the saying went. Miguel and Emma had been isolated for so long, cut off from help and hope. But now they were part of a community, had people who cared about their well-being, who wanted them to succeed. That made all the difference. As dawn began to lighten the sky beyond Emma's window, Miguel finally felt himself relaxing into sleep. His last conscious thought was a prayer of gratitude, not to any specific deity, but to the universe itself, to whatever force had guided them through darkness back to each other. They'd made it. Against impossible odds, they'd actually made it. And whatever challenges tomorrow brought, they'd face them together. That was enough. That was everything. Miguel and Emma's story reminds us that love is not passive. It's a choice we make every single day, especially when the world tells us to give up. At 16, Miguel could have accepted defeat when the system failed him. At 18, he could have decided he was too young, too unprepared, too broken by his own trauma to take on the responsibility of raising his sister. But he didn't. He counted 743 days and never stopped fighting. What would you have done in his place? Would you have had the strength to keep going when every door slammed in your face? Would you have believed in yourself enough to stand before a judge and demand the chance to protect the person you love? This story is about more than one brother and sister. It's about every person who's ever felt powerless against systems designed to ignore suffering. About every survivor who had to become their own hero because no one else would. Emma counted the days because she believed in a promise. Miguel kept that promise because some bonds are stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, stronger than any obstacle the world can place in our path. The question we must ask ourselves is simple but profound. When someone we love needs us most, will we show up? Will we fight impossible battles? Will we choose love over comfort, courage over convenience? If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Leave a comment telling us what you would have done in Miguel's situation, or share your own story of fighting for the people you love. Together, we can remind the world that family isn't just biology, it's commitment, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds we forge through our choices.